Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of our Tech Talk. Today's topic is going to be more of a security and what's happening out there in the world that we're supporting and working in. We have two new guests with us today. We've got Aaron Pantazo, who is our Technical Solutions Architect here on the security side, and then Matt Butner, who is a systems engineer on the Nebraska side. So, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join us. With today's session, especially with you, Aaron, we're going to focus more on security and kind of what we kind of see in the field and kind of go from there. So I guess in that regard, what is kind of top of mind right now, or what are we seeing out there?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and it's been going on for several months, is this dramatic shift to the work from home or the remote worker has just changed the dynamic of everything. We spent so much time, making sure that our borders were protected, our walls were protected, getting the firewalls, getting our branches taken care of. And then we had a small subset of workforces in general out and about, maybe never coming in the office. But now it's everybody's out, and it wasn't able to be planned. So then it was, holy cow, we got to pull out equipment and hey, get your home machines up and running, and then here's some software, and it's just completely changed how everybody's having to protect their environments and be able to provide the employees to be able to keep doing their jobs. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest. And then, so you take all that craziness going on just in day to day, and then you take the bad guys who are as opportunistic as possible, and they're just going crazy with phishing campaigns and deployment of malware, and just overall spam has just increased dramatically.
Yeah. What about for you, Jay and Matt, like from the customer side? Like I know for us, at least the ones I've worked with, that the big was just trying to get it to work, like scaling. So we spin up things real quickly. Maybe we didn't get a chance to do best practices. Like I have all these users, we got to spin them up. How am I getting connected? Maybe I don't have the best way for them to work from home, but at least I can try and get a connection set up. What did you guys see?
Yeah, those first few weeks of COVID were like stop the bleed, right? I think all of us were spinning up trial licenses and virtual ASAs and, running lab gear around to customers so that they could have some way to continue to work. But, as time went on, we realized this isn't something that's going to last weeks or months. It's going to last years or be permanent for a lot of customers. We kind of started to transform that image from hurry up and spin up VPN firewalls to, hey, start moving towards more SaaS applications. Expect more customers and employees to be home. Change the customer experience because they're going to be more mobile too, right? Instead of coming into the stores or whatever the vertical is, the customer experience has changed a lot too. So it's been interesting on the collaboration side. We've talked about that on the data center side, but also the security side too, which, unfortunately for a lot of businesses isn't necessarily top of mind, right? Like make it work, not make it work securely. So for a lot of our customers, kind of circling back around on that and making it whole again.
Yeah. Matt, I'd also say, like you over on the election day had a customer you helped support, and what were some of the things you saw in there? Like I know we briefly had a little chat about what was happening there, or how often, like probing and such. If you wanted to kind of just from what you were seeing.
Yeah, I mean, just to your guys' point, we still have to work, right? And we're in this distributed workforce basically now where everybody might come together for a short time and then break apart for longer stretches. Everybody's workforce has kind of changed. And with election, we obviously saw that too as a macro solution where people have changed the way they're voting, and security this time around was top of mind for some of our customers that support the elections directly. So with that said, it's one of those things where the elections are a very visible thing. And so having people have to be remote, have to be out in the field, secure SaaS solutions are just as important there, because they're needing to get people on board into their network and their solutions, their applications in a secure method, right? It's not good enough just to get them access. It's how do we get them securely, especially when we start talking about things like the election.
Yep. Okay, then kind of going from what we've seen. Go ahead, Jay.
Another vertical, to that point, talking about the elections, healthcare, right? We just recently had that FBI notice come out about healthcare, hospitals and whatnot being targeted for ransomware. And we've seen some of that in the Midwest as well. Customers actually impacted by that. So obviously hospitals are kind of on the back foot too, right? Dealing with the pandemic. So it's interesting to think about those other verticals as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say one of the things that is a reoccurring theme, whether your vertical is hospitals, Jay, or elections, or you are a retail trying to figure out how to survive today. The FBI is putting out a unprecedented amount of alerts, right, to all verticals, to all U.S.-based companies, saying, "Hey, we're seeing upticks in traffic attacks." What we're seeing common very often is customers are coming to us saying, "Here's all these warnings. Are we protected? Right? How do we protect ourselves?" I think that's something that we wanted to kind of talk about here, and because that's a reoccurring question is, I have this firewall, but is that enough? What is that doing for me? Right? When the FBI sends me these notices and tells me, "Hey, make sure you're protected against these things," well, how does that translate to what technology I have deployed already?
Yeah, we'll come to you, Aaron. What are kind of like the threat vectors that we're seeing? When if there is a vulnerability or if something's happening, where are people that we should maybe focus attention on, or where is it that most of these exploits are happening? What are we seeing on that side?
I think it's basically following the patterns that have been out there. Email is still the number one vector. They're still coming through, and if anything, they're taking advantage of everything else going on in the world and the panic that's going on to get people to. It makes it easier for people to click. So I can send an email acting like I'm some government entity that, hey, there's a problem with your stimulus check, and you need to click here to to straighten it out so you can get your money, or hey, here's the latest numbers in the pandemic, and people are panicked, and they're we spent all these years, and you got cyber training October every year where we go through and train people up, but that kind of goes out the window when you're really impacting their home life and what's going on. So I think email is still our number one vector, and it's just amplified, and then piggybacking off of that is the malicious websites, the new domains that are come up trying to spoof, the government entities, the healthcare entities that are sharing this stuff. So I don't know if it's changed what it was. It's just amplified.
Yeah. Do you think being home? Oh, go ahead, Jay.
I saw a really good phishing attempt the other day, to your point, email based, and it appeared to be an alert from like the local county health official saying, "Hey, we found contract tracing investigation where you were exposed to COVID-19. Click here for more information."
Yeah.
And you can just imagine somebody in a panic going, "Oh my gosh, who was it? What was the deal? Is I really exposed?" Click. And then you know what happens from there.
And real quick, just kind of stepping back from what you guys were just talking about, the election companies, the healthcare entities, things like that are getting heavily targeted or publicly targeted. There's a lot of folks out there that say, "I don't have to worry. I don't have anything that they want. Why are they going to attack me?" You're a prime candidate. What you're going to pay them when they encrypt your machines and you need to get your small business back up and running, you're going to pay that Bitcoin ransom, or they're going to use you as a pivot attack to somebody else. So I don't think anybody's immune at this point. I just think we've got a couple couple areas or industries that are just very popular, and it's getting a lot of the news, type stuff. But I think everybody's more vulnerable now than ever before.
Do you think being home makes it easier for workers to, because they have that home environment to where they're not in the office, so they may feel more comfortable with clicking on links? You think that has anything to go with it too, of maybe the perception of being home, they don't think the same way as if they were in the office might have a play? Or
well, I don't, that's an interesting, I hadn't really thought about that, but I think we'd all like to hope that the training that we're doing and the tools we're putting in place, the internal phishing campaigns to get people to train them, hey, this is what you shouldn't be clicking on, that it carries over. I think being at home probably opens us up to more things along the lines of, hey, mom or dad aren't at the computer and I want to get on and play Minecraft, and the kids are jumping on using the computers for what they should, for what they shouldn't be, and they're trying to get around things. I think that's probably our more the biggest danger at home is, hey, we're using these things for what they shouldn't be used for. Hey, I do my 8 to 5, and then at 5:01, I'm going to get on and do some shopping online and reading up on stuff and checking Facebook, and then all of a sudden, we're getting around these things, tools. And I think that's probably the biggest risk, more than just kind of a, hey, they're not watching me, so I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah.
I mean, the phishing campaigns are way more complex than they were when they first came out, right? These aren't prince asking you to send you millions of dollars that we usually help our older generations out on when they call us and say, "Hey, is this email legit?" These are, I think about these Cisco internal phishing campaigns. I mean, I know I'm guilty. The very first time I clicked, when they started that, I clicked on it because they look like they're legitimate. They're being sent what looks like from legitimate sources. And so we have to be, there's that human factor, right, with anything. And so we have to be very prudent as individuals, and we always can't be. So we need to have some sort of solution in there, a safety net, right, to block those.
Well, and they're getting better with the display name of the URLs, to where they're spoofing, using puny code, using other characters from other languages. They're making it look like it's google.com, but you can't tell that there's a couple of pixels that are missing that make up another character, that another character that goes to another domain, and at that point you're already owned. So I mean, they're tricking your eye, even picking it up. So even if I've been trained to check the domain, I'm looking at them like, well, it looks good. And even now with with people using cell phones more, is that a speck of dust? Is that a bad spot on my screen? Do I have a scratch on my screen? I mean, any number of things come in to get you to click. So yeah, I mean, those layers and those tools are more vital now than ever.
Yeah. I think another thing to bring up is the fact like the malware that comes across really it isn't so much just about locking up one PC. It's the idea that they want to get on yours to then start sprawling. They want to find data that then they can encrypt, and that's really where it comes in, because then you're crippled because they'll lock it. You'll get the message that says, hey, if you want these unlocked, you got to send over the money or whatever their function is for it. And so it's really that idea of, how do we look at trying to block that stuff? If we could either try and do DNS resolution, we can try and do content filtering. What if we do, but internally, it's a different way of thinking. Like you got to look east and west even. So you got to almost trust, like it's true zero trust of, I don't trust anything that's going east-west. I don't trust anything going out. I don't trust anything coming in. I mean, what are some good philosophies on that side?
Yeah, I mean,
So
go ahead,
you
Dave.
mentioned a few different product categories there, right? Like content filtering, email security, MFA. Which of these helps? And the answer, of course, is all of them, right? My favorite security quote is "Security is like an onion; it's many layers, and it makes a lot of people cry." So, specifically, like since the pandemic started, what have been some of the products that companies have been focused on and using in this multifaceted approach to help protect their users?
I mean, to
Go ahead.
that point, I was going to say, and just to build on that, Lance, when we get as engineers, we can get a little more technical here, I think, and say, it's that piece where once that malware is in there, like you said, they're sitting there looking, and it's all those systems we haven't patched. It's all that software that is vulnerable, right? And so what ends up happening is it's not just one thing we kind of let fly. It's a tier of things. So your onion example, right, Jay, is that because we have a multi-layered architecture, you have to have a multi-layer security, because when you're not patching your Exchange or you're not patching your VMware environment, when that malware does come in on that machine, they're going to maybe sniff the network, find some credentials that can remote into that box, that can find cached AD passwords, for example, service accounts for VMware in memory. If you're not using the right settings in Windows 10 environment, those things are sitting in memory. Take those, put them in vCenter, and then lock out your entire environment. So those are the things that we have to look out for as engineers, is that it's not just one spot, right?
I think IoT makes that even more complicated too, because if someone's plugging things in, and if you're not able to isolate, are there ways to still protect that device or ensure that things not going across? So I think that's one of those where you have the multi-tier, so where maybe you can't isolate, but maybe you can monitor that thing, or put some other, or if we just what could we do with those type of things. And I think that's kind of where we come into best practices. What are some of the best practices we should be looking at?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I mean, segmentation is the number one thing. You need to be able to go through and isolate and control what devices, what systems can talk to what. That's but that's not the end all be all. There's a whole lot else to it, but that's going to be your biggest step. And to be able to isolate that and do your segmentation properly, you got to know what's out there. What's on my network? Do I know every device that's on my network? Do I have a documentation of that? Do I have a profile for what it is? Do I know what it's supposed to be talking to? Once I built all that out, then I can create my policies and my segmentation to say, okay, this class of device can only talk to this server on this port, and then now I'm tightening the screws down to where I'm limiting that. And I mean, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked all over the place, and that's hard. I don't envy anybody at this point. And with, as you said, IoT, I mean, that just has exploded it even more. And now we're dealing with devices that may or may not be getting firmware patches. I can't load an agent on there. So what a mess.
Yeah, step one when it comes to segmentation is always visibility, right? I know on the campus LAN side, we talk about Stealth Watch a lot. And recently I had a customer that was doing a proof of value on Stealth Watch. And he realized by looking at the traffic patterns, that helped him come up with the routing tables he needed for his WAN. That helped him come up with firewall rules he needed so that he could start to lock down the network. Because, to your point, like, you never know what applications are talking to what. I mean, even custom developed stuff, you can ask the developer that worked on it last, and he doesn't know. Right. So we really have to catch that stuff in flight and identify it that way. But that's always step one to real segmentation.
Yeah, you bring up Stealth Watch. What a great tool where it can go through. I mean, it's an analytics tool. You're able to go through, look at everything on your network. You're able to know what's out there, and you're able to know what's normal. What's that? I mean, years and years and years troubleshooting. And somebody calls you to their desk, hey, something's wrong. Well, how's it normally act? What's it normally do? Well, I don't know. It's slow. Yep. It doesn't seem right, that when I click this button, it doesn't work right now. Okay. Now, as the IT guy, you're scratching your head going, I don't know. I'm looking at ports, everything. I'm not seeing crazy traffic flows. I don't know what normal is. And then you spend a whole bunch of time to have a tool that you can go into and say, oh, wow, look, you're now sending this, a large amount of traffic out to the internet that you've never done before, So, I mean, having that visibility and then taking it a step further to be alerted. Hey guys, something's happened, and this printer only ever talked to the print server. Now all of a sudden it's doing an Nmap scan. Whoa, okay, that's something I need to pay attention to. So now I'm being proactively notified of, hey, something's out of whack because I've got that trending data to know what's going on. And a new device comes on the network, I get notified that the device is on the network. Hey, this is something new. This is how we're mapping it back to being this type of device. What are we going to do with it now? So I mean that. Stealth Watch is an incredibly powerful tool, and then even take it a step further to, as we move into cloud workloads, to have that visibility into what do you guys have up in your Amazon or Google or Microsoft clouds where you're running compute. Now you've got that visibility up into those clouds as well. So you've got your cloud and on-prem, and you've got full visibility of what is going east-west. And that is a critical spot where we need to be watching what's going on and being able to respond quickly.
I think another thing that we as engineers sometimes don't always think the best about is actually doing plans maybe, or what processes if something were to happen. I know we usually always like to spin things up or tweak things. We don't really then like to do a lot of paperwork or like a planning action, but I think Matt, you might want to explain a little bit on this just from experience too. Like, do you think plans are pretty vital too in this instance where, preparing for that if it were to happen?
Yeah, that's a great point, Lance. I think most customers are at these beginning stages that we're talking about, and unfortunately, what we're seeing out there in the real world is that people are starting to increase their security posture in their environments, but it's sometimes too late. And we have real incidents in the real world where they are getting attacked actively, and they reach out to us, right? And most of those times it's the equivalent of a data center being blown off the map, right? When your entire environment becomes a hacker's domain, you basically have lost access to that, right? That is not your data center anymore, it is theirs. And how do you respond to that? Where do you even begin? And so that's where Cisco has what we call our incident response. And I've seen this firsthand out in the field where we will provide that playbook, right? We understand that this is not your day-to-day business, right? Let's bring in the guys that do this day in day that are responding to these incidents and help out. And so it is actually paramount. We have a couple customers that would not be where they're at in the recovery stages if we didn't have that playbook ready for us.
And you mentioned instant response. I mean, that brings up Talos. I mean, that's one of those that's maybe not everybody might not be aware of, but that is part of like a Cisco security, being able to just see everything that's out there. Aaron, if you wouldn't mind, you want to kind of elaborate just on like, who is Talos and what it is?
Yeah, so Talos is our threat research organization. They're the folks that are going through, pulling in the information, doing the research, seeing the bad stuff, being able to dig through, deconstruct malware, being able to go through, create the signatures for all of our security tools. They are the largest non-government threat research group out there. So Cisco's taken a huge, made a huge investment in that to create that and brought in some of the best minds out there. But they go through and all the telemetry data that's coming in from the systems, whether it's stuff, we've got honeypots out there on the internet, we're pulling in analytics information from our endpoint tools, pulling in information from Umbrella as far as we're seeing on DNS, but being able to take that and have an understanding of what's going on and picking up on trends and then how do we tweak the tools to protect us? The updates that are being pushed out to your firewalls for the security intelligence that's being out. What's the new malicious IPs? What are the new signatures? What are the SHA hashes of those files? They're the ones that are going through and finding that and putting that stuff out there. So we take that intelligence of what they're gathering and what they've put together and then turning that around because they see it day in and day out to be able to offer services like an IR to where, hey, whether it's a proactive, hey, let's set this up, let's make an agreement, we'll do whatever that agreement may be as far as term. You've got a person to call, they get on the line with you, you guys walk through your DR plans, what's your business continuity plans, what's our recovery, what do you have? It doesn't have to be all Cisco products, it can be, a variety of third-party products out there to protect you, but where have you gone? And and something I want to make sure we touch on is like a framework. You got to have a security framework that you've built your platform around. So, okay, what have we done to walk through that? Are you guys in the best position to be protected? Where is your gaps? Do the gap analysis. Where are you lacking? Where do we go in and find tools to fill those voids? So then they've given you the once over. They understand your environment. They know who you are. They've found things that you need to do to make it better. And then you go on about your business and you keep doing and updating things and keeping track of your environment. But if something were to happen and the worst possible thing happens and you walk in the morning and all your screens are blacked out and here, deposit your cryptocurrency here, you pick up the phone and you call your guy and they're on the phone with you and they're helping you recover. And because they know everything about your environment, your time to recovery is dramatically improved based off of that. So that's one of them. There's the holy cow, we're owned. I've never called Cisco before, but I need help. We've got that emergency hotline as well that's available. And then really the third piece to it, one of the services they offer is a managed service where for a lot of companies, especially people that we work with, they don't have the ability to have a full staff of 6, 7, 8 security folks that's all they do day in and day out. They're running around doing everything. They're replacing PCs, they're patching servers, they're, fixing printer jams and all that stuff. And then they have to be security experts as well. So to be able to have that managed service of folks that do this day in and day out that are monitoring, pulling information out of your dashes, and then they're remediating and providing you a report afterwards. It's a huge feature to take some of that burden off and to give you that confidence of, I'm decent at what I do, but these guys are experts, and I'm going to lean on the experts to help me when things get really bad.
Yeah. My favorite example of Talos, the threat research side, their expertise is something I read about them with Umbrella a while back. They actually research and figure out these pseudo random domain name registration algorithms. So it used to be like malware. They're constantly it's a revolving door of domain names, right? And they're pseudo randomly generated. It used to be like hours or days after they stand up these domains and the malware started reaching out to them that Talos and these threat research org would figure out those bad domains and block them. And now they've gotten to the point where they can predict what the next domain name is going to be. Like, they know the algorithms they're using to register those. They're blacklisting those domain names before they get registered, before they get created in some cases. So it's totally wild. Not just the expertise those guys have, but the amount of intel they have, right? They're pulling in that information, like you said, from Umbrella, from AMP, from Firepower. So they have a ton of info to work with, and, customer A's compromise will benefit everybody else as a result, right? Because they can take that info and go, hey, now we're going to start looking for these hashes, these domain names, these IP addresses. The greater community benefits as a result.
Yeah, you bring that up, and so Umbrella has their own threat research org that has been doing it for a very long time, and they've got some incredible tools that they run their stuff through to be predictive. And so when you combine the knowledge and the tools that the Umbrella team has, they've specialized on that since the tool came out, to now then overlaying that with Talos. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we're detecting things before it's actually been created, and we're blacklisting domains before the domains are actually been registered. So yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, I would even emphasize that if you're not even a Cisco customer, still go and check them out. They're always broadcasting what they're seeing out there. So even you can see what's being posted in blogs. I think Jay's even referenced once about like a podcast that they have to listen to them, hear what's happening. So even if you're not a Cisco customer, still go out, see what they're offering and see it. And then if you are a Cisco customer, then the one thing I'd kind of will just wrap up with is, you know who they are, you know where all that information is coming from. If you have those Cisco products, let's say you do have Umbrella and you have Stealth Watch and you've got Cisco email security, you want to try and start looking at, or AMP for endpoints, that's like 4 tools I just mentioned. Would that be like 4 dashboards you'd have to go to? But something that I guess it's been generally available for a few months is SecureX on our side, to try and pull all these together. Because like Aaron mentioned, you're not an expert. You've got so many things going on, you can't access those. To where if we had a tool to make it a little bit easier to see what's your environment, one place to go, you can do case books. But if you wouldn't mind, kind of elaborate kind of what SecureX is, and if you haven't seen it before, reach out to your Cisco people and they would be more than happy to bring it up. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, elaborate a little bit more on the SecureX side.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a great tool, and as you said, Lance, it comes with your Cisco security subscription. So if you have a product, you're going to get your dashboard. The power of it is when you start bringing more intelligence into it and more tools into it. So it's a dashboard. It's not going to be the end all be all. There's not ever going to be that one pane of glass per se, to where we just go and manage our environments, but it's going to be a consolidated dashboard. So I can go through, I can customize what my tiles are, and I can pull in as I integrate my tools like AMP and Umbrella, any cloud email security and Stealth Watch, some of these tools we've talked about today, bring that into the dash. Then I can go through and create customized views of, hey, this is interesting information for me. This is stuff when I look up at the wall on a monitor on the wall, or the third one on my desk, what do I want to have that quick glance to see? Is it an uptick in trends? Is it an uptick in phishing attempts or whatever? So I can create that dash, and it's going to allow me to go through and say, okay, hey, something's going on. Okay, I see something out of the ordinary. I want to dig into this a little bit further. So there's really, in my view, 3 main parts of the tool. So I've got my dashboard. We have, there's the ribbon, which is another piece of the tool. So along the bottom of most of your Cisco security tools is going to be this ribbon, and it follows you around through all these tools. So as you're in Umbrella and you see an interesting domain, you see something, you're able to take that information and put it into an incident or put it into a casebook. And then I'm in my AMP dashboard, or somebody else on my team is in AMP doing some stuff and be like, hey, this is interesting too. Now I'm able to pull out of each of these tools, and I've got this essentially a notebook following me around that I'm sharing with my team to gather all these unique pieces of information that are, hey, this is interesting. I may want to discover, look into this further. From there, then I can gather all this stuff, and then I can immediately kick it out to Cisco Threat Response, which is that query tool of, all right, I've got these interesting things. What do I know about this? How has it come into my environment? What do my tools know? My integration with third parties, then, do I go to VirusTotal? Am I going to any number of other threat feeds, other tools that are out there, and say, okay, wow, okay, this file hash that we saw in AMP actually came in through our email tool. Here's the email message. Here's the sender. Here's everybody in my environment that got the information. So I know I've got that place that I'm sharing amongst my teammates, and I've got a nice common notebook that I'm sharing amongst everybody. So that ribbon's extremely powerful. Let's take that a step further now, and now we have the orchestration piece of it. So now I can go through all these tools that I have integrated in together via APIs, where I'm going through and sharing this information, and I'm querying it, I'm doing my lookups. But now I can orchestrate and create specific workflows on how I want my systems to behave, whether it be an automated workflow, being, hey, a system sees this and I want it to kick off this workflow, and it's going to go through and follow behaviors that I want to say, okay, let's take a snapshot of it, an orbital snapshot of this machine because we see something malicious on it. Go through, if I see a hash on that machine, I want to upload it to my threat grid account, so I want to explode it in the sandbox. Go through, and I can keep walking down here. I want to isolate the machine out to a separate VLAN so it can be re-imaged, and I can do my deeper analysis on it. Oh, by the way, I'm going to open up a ServiceNow ticket because of the I need to kick it off so my help desk team knows to go out and touch that machine, and then I can pop it up, and I want an update in my WebEx Teams room, let me know, hey, we saw this and this is what we've done, and I've got my nice summary that I can go back and as a security leader, I can go through and be able to keep constant thread of that. And all that's just automated and works through. So now we're simplifying our processes even more to go through. And now we're being very reactionary. We see something strange, we kick off a bunch of processes to act on it to protect our environments. And I'm being notified with that full write-up afterwards of what's going on. And I've got my nice log. So I think that's probably the most powerful piece of it. But those three components together make it a great dashboard for, I got too many tools to deal with anyway. What's important, and how do I simplify by automating it and letting it do its thing? And, I'm tying into the Microsoft operating system, tying into VMware, tying into my cloud services, Kubernetes, things like that. I can integrate into there and do instantaneous reaction, behaviors or workflows based off of whatever we see.
Yeah. I think Matt and Jay had talked about just that security as an onion. And the fact that if you're every layer you're going to add on, there's got to be some way that you're going to control or monitor or work with those. And that's what, like you mentioned, you start getting so many tools to try and handle that, to at least where that gives you the ability to go to one spot to try and integrate these together to do automation orchestration. That's pretty cool. That's really nice.
Yep.
Well, I think we're getting close to the end of the time. Do you guys want to wrap up with any final sayings? I know, again, thank you for taking the time to join us. And is there any final suggestions or offering for everybody out there to be a little bit more secure?
Orchestrate what you can, simplify it, and secure as you go. Don't come back around and try to secure it later.
Automation is what's going to save us. Being able to go through and have things respond, because there's just too much going on, too much data coming in for a person or even a team of people to go through and parse through it. We need to automate what we can. We need to strengthen the tools we have. We need to make sure they're working together. You can have the best point products in the world, but if they don't talk to each other, it doesn't simplify your job. So make sure whatever tools you have, there's some sharing of information. They're working together. They're enriching the whole. You're pulling information and it's making you able to respond quicker. Because if that ecosystem isn't working together, it's hindering you and slowing you down.
Yep, AI is so important these days, guys. We don't have the time to look at this data. We can't even digest what this data is saying to us, right? So artificial intelligence with orchestration is the only way that we're going to protect and stay ahead of these guys that are kicking us while we're down, right? They're looking for the weak link and they're capitalizing on it. It doesn't matter if you're in healthcare or a local distribution service, right? They will find you guys. We see it happen in retail, even when retail has been struggling through COVID here. Everybody's susceptible, and we have a lot of tools to help you. Feel free to reach out to your teams and ask for help.
Well, again, thank you, Aaron and Matt, for joining us, and then thank you everybody for watching today. We'll try and get another Tech Talk video going, but thank you and have a great day.
Thanks a lot.